Cool. I'll make a start. Thanks everybody for coming to SIP call number 23, 22nd of November. Well, it's a steering committee November update this call. And we're very grateful to have Marvin on today. It's his late night. Yeah, so I really appreciate him coming on. And we'll talk you through why he's here. So just for those who might not have been here before, I know there's at least one guy, he's like 14, he's in Stacks, new to Stacks. So I just want to give a little bit of introduction. So every week we have a SIP call, but at the end of every month, we have a steering committee call. And it's basically a steering committee giving us a direct update to what's going on in the SIP world or around SIP world. And we'll go through what the steering committee is about and the highlights from the development and any key highlights from the SIP world, such as Stacks 2.1. And we'll leave a bit of room in the end for open floor feedback. So yeah, just a bit of introduction. So as I briefly mentioned earlier, so basically we've got Jude, who used to be on every panel, but now we managed to find all the things, well, a lot of the cabs, so he can now step back and just be in the steering committee. And we found Gina, who's happened to being in Stacks for such a long time, and it's a great fit for the steering committee. And now today we just onboarded Marvin to being on the steering committee, so that we can have another voice for the community on the steering committee. So yeah, so maybe I'll give Marvin a bit of introduction. If you can introduce, like, I know most of you in Stacks know you, but yeah, a quick introduction would be great. If you can unmute.
There you go. I needed to raise my hand. Yeah, hey guys, Marvin here, joining the steering committee. Excited to do my bit here. And yeah, as Hero already said, you might know me. I was with the Stacks Foundation for a while, built some interesting things. I think bigger project was Executor DAOs. So if you've done DAO stuff, you probably came across that. Worked on the semi-fungible token standard, which is SIP 13. Also fund structured data, SIP 18, which will unlock all sorts of exciting new things as well. Clarity book, as it says on the slide, and some other things. Yeah, if you have any questions or anything, how do I lower my hand? There you go. Yeah, that's me. Is that enough, Hero?
Yeah, sure. Maybe have some words from Jude and Gina, maybe?
Sure. So Marvin's been involved in the space for a while, even before Stacks 2.0. I believe the first time I ever saw Marvin's work online was when he was building a prototype of what would now become the writer device, using a breadboard and some just off-the-shelf buttons to do cryptographic signing. And I thought that was really neat. There's a Medium post I'm sure you can find about it. Since then, he has gone on to mentor people through learning Clarity, culminating in the creation of the Clarity book, which is the definitive resource on Clarity. And I highly recommend that you take a look at that, or at least have a copy on hand when you, if you ever get a chance to write smart contracts. And now he's doing a fantastic job at bringing Writer into being, which I'm personally looking forward to every single person having a writer device, because that's going to replace your YubiKey. It's going to replace your crypto wallet. And it's certainly a far easier and less painful experience than trying to do all this with like your seed phrases or trying to dredge out your ledger wallet or things of that nature. And I think it's just a fantastic fit for this role.
Thank you, Jude. You did so much better than I did with that intro.
Cool. Hey, yeah, I'm so glad that you're on the steering committee, Marvin. Thanks for everything that you do for this community and ecosystem. I think, you know, we've had a call prior to this, and sort of I think one of the questions that Marvin had was, you know, can I still contribute to SIPs? Can I still be, you know, can I still write SIPs? And I think the definitive answer was yes. You know, Jude is a very active participant in the SIP process, and Marvin, we hope will be as well. But I think it was just one of those things where we're able to bring, you know, folks who are very active into this space. You know, everyone's going to be super caught up and continue to contribute. And I think just in terms of process, you know, folks who essentially propose a SIP will just recuse themselves from the actual sort of ratification of that specific SIP, which makes it really good to have 3 folks on the sort of steering committee here. And I think that there's just a ton of room for improvement here. Like I think Marvin and Jude were talking about how, you know, the SIP process really applies to the whole ecosystem, not just the blockchain. And so with the help of Hero, I think, you know, the rest of this year and also next year is going to be a lot of opportunity to essentially like keep building stacks together. So yeah, just excited and would love to see a lot of involvement from the community. If you have suggestions, we're all ears. So thank you, and excited to have Marvin on board.
Yeah, thank you so much. Would you be able to, would anybody, Jude or Gina, perhaps give a 1-minute summary? What does the steering committee do for the Stacks community?
Sure, I can take a stab. So the steering committee is one of the organizing bodies of the SIPs process. It's basically a stewardship role. Like our job is not to prescribe things that happen into the ecosystem, but just to facilitate the people who want to see things get their things done in a way that is reflective of community buy-in. If you take a look at SIP 000, which defines the SIP process, that's literally the first sentence, like we are stewards, like we're not dictators, we're not presidents or presidiums. It's our job just to help people get things done in an orderly fashion so that we don't all step on each other's toes. The biggest responsibility we have really is making sure people who submit SIPs or want to submit SIPs like know what to do and get it done in a timely fashion. As well as make sure that SIPs that have a broad impact, especially ones that are consensus breaking changes to the blockchain or touch all aspects of interaction with the system, such as a code of conduct, that such systems do get the appropriate feedback from the community and only activate and ratify with the community's consent. I think it's probably the single biggest responsibility we have is to make sure that people know how to get things done that affect the ecosystem, and things that people want to do that affect the ecosystem take effect with community consent.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. And it's definitely very community oriented. So we hope to have more community voice. And that's why I keep encouraging everybody to participate in any of the votings or conversation on GitHub or Stacks Forum, because these are the ways for you to get your voices in and coming onto this call too. Yeah, so let's move on. Thank you so much, Jude. Yeah, so maybe just a quick update to the SIP 15. I'm just gonna mention like the SIP process itself. You can see is from when the SIP idea goes from the draft and make it all the way through the different committees to the end when it becomes ratified. And SIP 15 currently sits in the recommended stage. SIP 20 is at accepted stage, but these are rider SIP. So provided that SIP 15 will be activated, these 2 SIP will be activated too. Yeah. So just a quick highlight from the SIP development over the past month. I don't know if somebody can give us if Jude can give us a bit of update, or maybe Bryce, who's on this call, can give us a bit of update on SIP 20. Maybe Marvin can tell us a little bit about SIP 18.
Hey, Hero. Yeah, sure. So SIP 20 is about adding bitwise operations into Clarity. So adding some new built-in functions essentially that do bitwise operations. So basically manipulating the bits in a value, ands, ors, XOR, shifting, and shifting left, shifting right. And I think I'm missing one. But anyway, these type of bitwise operations that are useful for different types of things. Essentially making it a lot easier to write things and making them run much more efficiently on by the miners. So the current state of that is it's been approved by both of the cabs, and it is I believe ready to go to be so this is defined as a rider SIP to SIP 15. So if SIP 15 passes, then this gets activated along with 2.1.
Oh, maybe Marvin can tell us a little bit about SIP 18. I know it's being ready to be ratified for a while, but maybe we'll just remind people what SIP 18 is about.
Sure. Yeah. SIP 18, for those of you that worked in Ethereum space and know about Ethereum space, it's similar to EIP 712. Which is a standard that allows you to sign what is called your structured data. So this is data that is both meaningful to a smart contract and an application, but also can be read by people. So why would you want this? It will allow you to sign stuff that might not necessarily be used on chain, or at least not right away. So an example I can give you is say you're trading on an order book, decentralized exchange. You can sign an order object that says, hey, I want to trade this much. This is the price that I'm looking for. This is how many units I have for sale, etc. And this signed message can then be kept off chain until a matching order is actually found, upon which it is sent on chain, and then a matching engine logic, smart contract will then settle the order. That's one example. It can be used for many other things. It can also be used for app sign-ins, and yeah, many other things. So it's been a SIP that's been in the works for a while, and it was a little bit interesting because it depended on a Clarity feature that did not yet exist at the time, but has since been included in Stacks 2.1, so the SIP that was just mentioned. And yeah, it should activate at the same time because the activation criteria were the inclusion of a function that would do that, turning it something into consensus buffs. We can get into that some other time. And the other aspect was for a popular wallet to implement it. Well, we have since seen Hero Wallet support SIP 18, and teams are already starting to build on that. So that's pretty cool. So hopefully, yeah, we'll get that all finished up very soon.
Cool. Anybody got any comments? Just want to remind people there are various working groups, which are some of it which will have consensus breaking stuff, some of which are non-consensus breaking improvements. So those stuff are also in the works, improving stacks as well. And yeah. And if anybody got any other comments, feel free. Okay, if not, I'll move on to the next one bit. So if we can give a bit of update on Stacks 2.1 upgrade from the committee, that would be great.
Sorry, which committee would you like the update from?
Yeah, sorry, steering committee, sorry.
Okay, the testnet booted up last night, so that's a good indication of progress. The code is complete, so everything that needed to be written is either a pull request or merged into the next branch. We will hopefully have everything merged into the next branch before the holiday begins on Thursday for those who celebrate. The excuse me, I just wanted to bring something just to your attention real quick, just from the previous slide about SIP 20. I know that Stacks 2.1 has been kind of a long process. It's been worked on since shortly after 2.0 went live, so almost as long as the blockchain itself. And that has led to some questions about is the SIP process, reactive enough or fast enough to adapt to community needs? A fun thing to consider here is that SIP 20, the Bitwise operators, went from GitHub issue to full implementation and SIP in the space of a week. So I just want to, first of all, shout out to Kyle, who made that happen, as well as the technical cab who helped shepherd that pull request into a proper SIP and into a proper addition to the Stacks 2.1 update in a timely fashion. And I just want to bring this up because I don't want people to feel intimidated by the SIP process. Clearly, we can move fast, and it's not a very big lift to make a SIP. It just looks formal because it has a format. But we're a friendly bunch. We're happy to help you get your ideas merged into the blockchain if they're consensus breaking. So that way we can make sure everything is copacetic, everyone's happy with the changes, and we largely do want to work with you. Huge hats off to Kyle for making that happen really quickly.
Yep, thank you so much. Any CAB chairperson want to give us a bit of update to what they've been up to over the past month?
You're up, Bryce.
I see Jason raised his hand as well. He'll pop up somewhere. Oh, there you
Go ahead, Jason. You can go first.
Sure. Yeah, so the governance cab, we've been busy. We did our review of SIP 15 and kind of looked over everything through the lens of governance and posted up the meeting minutes there. So that part is all complete. As mentioned earlier, we also discussed SIP 20 async, and we just need to record some of those meeting minutes officially within the repo. But as far as we're concerned, it looks like it'll be an upgrade, or it's like something that fits in well, and we'll just add some additional functionality compared to anything that feels like really contentious or like it's making a big change. Alongside everything else happening with Stacks 2.1, we were excited to include that one in as well. And yeah, best place to keep an update on what's going on with the cabs would be right there in the StacksGov SIPs repo. We've got a little area for considerations, and that's where we have the membership, as well as any of the meeting notes and official decisions and these kind of things too.
And from the technical cab, very similar to what Jason said for the governance cab. So yeah, working through SIP 15, a lot of debates around that, a lot of discussions, and then ultimately the voting. Same thing with SIP 20. Again, there's a lot of feedback from the cab on that SIP, and then eventually we all came to something that everybody was happy with and got to the vote. But it does bring up an interesting point that we were discussing that we can bring up here, or potentially probably talk with the governance cab about as well, about the process. So like, at what stage should the SIP be when it comes to the cab? So like, there was a lot of discussion that there was too much back and forth and changes during our voting process. Like, maybe the cab members don't want to also be SIP editors. They want to just read what's there and then it doesn't change and we vote on it. So I have some concerns with that causing a much longer loop to get changes integrated and then getting back, back to voting again. So instead of kind of providing feedback as we go, making changes and then voting, it would be, we vote, the vote includes the feedback, we go through another process to push a new update and then vote again on that. So I think it's probably something we should have some discussion about, of exactly how we should manage that as we get into more SIPs and bigger teams and all that kind of stuff.
Do you feel like a lot of those concerns are de-risked if another one of the bigger lessons learned from the SIP 15 is that it's better to have a lot of small SIPs as opposed to a big SIP? Even if they activate in tandem, it's still preferable to break it up. Would that de-risk?
Definitely think that makes it favorable to have more smaller SIPs. And yeah, I guess I think maybe we need a more clear maybe like the SIP author has some phase where the author is done with it, and then it's just like an editing time. So it's not quite ready for the CAB to vote on it yet, but it's time for editors to add their feedback. And those editors may or may not be members of the different CABs. They may just be whoever. But then at some point we kind of lock it in, and at that point the CAB does the vote. I think that would make some people happier than what we end up doing with this one.
To be clear, do you believe that changes to the text would be permitted after a CAB vote, as long as the substance of the text did not change? Like one concern, for example, that we actually had to address in SIP 15 was that the description of how POX1 unlock and POX2 relocks happen was not written clearly enough. And the folks who informed me of this did not comment on the SIP text. We instead jumped in a Zoom call together, and that resulted in me patching the SIP text. It didn't change the substance of the SIP, but it just made things clearer. Maybe is that kind of the concern here? Like, should that have happened before the CAB voted? Can that happen anytime? When is the what's the mandate of the CAB to lock in changes versus permit non-substantial changes?
Yeah, I guess the problem there is just somebody has to decide what is considered substantial change and what is not. So maybe it's easiest to just say no changes at all. And maybe there's some process for, I don't know, some process for like a simpler voting process if it's just minor changes that were made.
Yeah, the thing is, like, voting is a high touch thing. Like, we would,
right.
If you want, like, the funny thing is that the rationale behind making SIP 15 into a bigger SIP like it was specifically to minimize the amount of time the technical CAB had to spend iterating over a bunch of different SIPs. So that way there's only one vote, and it was just a unanimous, it was an omnibus, yay or nay, as opposed to doing that 20 times or something like that, which would have been much more time consuming for the CAB without substantially improving the text of the SIP. But that's okay. Like, I'm happy to do smaller SIPs if that's what the CAB wants. If the CAB wants to be more involved, then by all means, that's certainly grounds for rejection in the future. A SIP that's too big.
Yeah.
But that does, the reason I bring that up though is because that is an example of this broader concern that I guess we have, is to what extent does the technical CAB feel like it needs to be involved in changes at all? Like, you can imagine trivial cases like typos. Do those need a vote to fix? I would think no.
I would prefer not. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe a happy medium could be like, after approval, then any changes to the SIP text must be done as pull requests against the SIP text, so the CAB members have a chance to just look at it. We could even have a policy where, like, you have 3 days to respond, and if there's no response, then accept by default or merge by default or something like that.
Yeah, something like that seems totally reasonable to me. We definitely just did have some pushback from some of the CAB members about wanting to basically have a static document that they're looking at and not a live document that's still actively being changed.
Right, and that's why I'm trying to distinguish between substantial versus non-substantial changes.
Yeah.
I definitely sympathize with the CAB. Like, it shouldn't be the case that the author can just, retroactively change things and use a vote on and invalidate the CAB's vote.
Right.
Yeah.
How about we I was thinking whether we can I'll create like a Google Doc for like lesson learned or retrospective, and that people, while it's fresh in people's head right now, people can put it into the doc, and then we can review it after the 2.1 is activated.
Yeah, that would be a good meeting to have, even just presentation of lessons learned. Yeah. And recommendations, perhaps for a governance track SIP that prescribes ways to avoid problems in the future.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right, I'll get the Google Doc up. Yeah, so because I'm trying to. Oh.
I just wanted to say that we have been planning to do something more formal, like a retro or a postmortem on this entire process, just so that we can continue to iterate for the CABs. So that's something that we're going to start planning next month. But if anyone has ideas and can contribute to Heroes doc now, that would be great. We want to have a written report published in a blog for the community by next quarter.
Sounds good. That's certainly doable.
Yeah. Yeah, and the reason why I thought about doing it is because if we start jotting things down in 2 months' time, I think we would have forgotten some of the things that we were thinking back, you know. So it'd be good to get some bullet points down. Yeah, so I'll just like to mention, like, on the other side of things, that voting is going on. So please go and check out the 2 voting methods, well, 3. One is SIP15 website created by Jason, and the other one is stx.eco created by Mike. One is for stacking, and the other one is if you're not stacking. And the first method of the stacking method one, you have to be stacking over cycle 46 and 47. So yeah, these will end around 8th of December. So yeah, please go vote. Yeah, so I'm just gonna try to keep this meeting as short as possible. Anybody got any questions or feedback? Please raise your hand now. Okay, cool. Yeah, so just a quick call for SIP editors and technical mentors. I will be looking for them over the next couple of months. And let me just do a quick giveaway for the attendees on this call, as per promised. Hold on, where are the list? Yeah, so thank you everybody for coming. This I hope you find this useful, and it'll be on YouTube. And I'll write a bit of notes and publish them on Twitter as well. So, and 1 sec. So thank you, John, for coming. John is our youngest ever attendee. He's only 14. Yeah, it's pretty amazing to see we have young people in Stacks.
Yeah, welcome, John. Thanks for making the time to come to our meeting.
Okay, guys, here, oh, yeah. So here you go. So it will be SIP 002 BNS. Oh, Chente. Oh, fantastic. Congratulations. SIP 002 is the Clarity language SIP. So it's pretty fundamental to how Stacks works. So yeah, thank you so much. And everybody have a great Thanksgiving.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Marvin.